months away from the NFL draft, so we're gonna go through another prospect breakdown in Mazi Smith, the big Wolverine, the monster there on that defensive tackle, the Bruce Feldman's Freaks List winner. So in 5 minutes or less, the clock has already started, starting with the strengths. And it's all about the power. Jeremy Clarkson revving it up, man. Mazi Smith, dude, he has got immense power, a really good grip strength. He shows off that power and the ability to be able to move guys with his hands at will. So important, especially if you're trying to be a good run defender, which I think he will be early on in his career. Has that two-gap ability to hold out defenders, take on double teams. Two-gap ultimately can really be someone that you rely upon on that interior if you need a run defense. He's also been developing his pass rush plan. He's not there yet, but he's got a nice push-pull move that he's able to really slide with defenders. Shows off a nice bull rush move too. So we'll see if he can continue to get there. That'll be an area of an improvement. Athleticism, though, the Bruce Feldman's Freaks List. We're talking about this guy is insane. He ran a 6.953 cone. I couldn't run that. That's unbelievable, man. And he's 337 pounds. What's going on? How does a man this big move at that size? It seems like all the Wolverines guys, then, they're all crazy agility athletes. He's got a 33-inch vert. 11.9 60-yard shuttle. So all these stuff are crazy. Great agility. And the dude has some serious closing pursuit speed to tackle ball carriers. The versatility across the defensive line and his motor. His motor runs hot, first and foremost. Always looking for work and finding and going through the trash and digging and finding the raccoons out there. Get me out of here, Black Cat, he says. But you know what I'm saying, versatile-wise. He can play across, whether it's a 3 or a 4, 3-4 or a 4-3 defensive line. If you want to put him at 2 tech or a 3 tech, whatever, right? 1 tech at a nose position on a 4-3, or even at 0 in a 3-4. I think he provides a lot of versatility on your defensive line. And he's also great on stunts with that agility, that natural agility. So teams that really rely on stunts and love to get unique pressures, he is going to be a guy that's going to be perfect for that. And we talked about this already, but he's a great run defender. He utilizes his hands and his counters to get off defenders, combined with that pursuit speed. Very, very good at defeating blocks and getting in the backfield, making plays. But let's talk about some areas that Mazi needs to improve upon, starting with the pass rush plan and the pass rush tools. He's still developing, but you see it, 6.7% pressure rate throughout his career. It went down even a little bit this year. He needs to continue to add more pass rush tools to his arsenal. He's got the tools, he's got the talent. He needs more to his plan, because sometimes when that initial move gets stopped, he just doesn't quite have that second move to get the job done. Athleticism, you see the athleticism with Mazi Smith. However, the one thing I will say, off the line of scrimmage, a little bit sometimes sluggish, not what you would expect. Now, granted, he is 337 pounds, you would expect that, but with those freakish tools, he's going to need to improve getting off the line of scrimmage if he wants to really be a true disruptor and, you know what I'm saying, a person off the line to pop you and add some pass rush and be a 3-down defender. Pad level, another thing. I think he does at times let his chest get cleared up after that first move, and he'll kind of get washed out, get moved up, and get driven back at times. Not much. He is very strong, but that was something I noticed on a knock on him. That is a little bit more of a nitpicky sort of thing, but it is something he can continue to get better at, staying low, keeping that ped level down, and rocking it out there. And then finally, limitations. Is he just a 2-down player because of the pass rush tools that he does not quite possess just yet? I think he will be a 3-down player at some point, but someone's going to have to teach him the ropes and say, hey, you know what, this is how you pass rush, this is how you get to the quarterback. Those are things he's going to have to work. Overall, Mazi Smith, really good run defender. Day one, I feel great about him going and being a plug-and-play defensive lineman, a day one starter in the NFL. And he gives you a lot, whether you're an even or an odd man front. If you want to put him at 0, I think he can do that. If you want to put him at 1 tech and a 4-3, he can do that. Even if he wants to be a rushing 3, 2 tech, whatever, he can do that. Eventually, I think he can get there with those tools and that pass rush plan that he can develop and whatnot. And like I said, he's developing some sort of things. He's got all the measurables and the tools that NFL teams want from an interior defensive lineman. So that, in a nutshell, is Mazi Smith. Also, one quick side note, not worried about the gun charge and whatnot with all that sort of thing going on. It doesn't seem like it's a big deal. John Harbaugh has multiple times stood up for the dude, and I think it's just your naysay. He's a top 5 defensive tackle. He might be a top 3 defensive tackle in this draft class. Mazi Smith, 5 minutes or less, scouting breakdown. Let me know what you think.
Bryan Bresee from Clemson is also a very easy evaluation. We were talking about how this is a guy who was a top recruit, was just bodying kids, and justifiably so. And the reason why some of these guys will be considered to be top recruits over others is because of how far along they're developed. And Bresee, as we were talking about earlier, feels like he's been developed and built to take on those double teams and dominate along the defensive line. A couple other things that I noted with Bresee, Ryan, is that he is very funny to watch because they love to just move him around. And I know that they're going to have a new defensive coordinator, but he was playing 0, and he bounced from 0 to 3 to 5 to even all the way out to a 7 technique, which is freaking fantastic. That is what you want in a first-round, early second-round defensive tackle, is a guy that knows how to play and line up at different points on the defensive line. He's probably not going to do that at the next level often, but he has that capability and that experience in his arsenal, being previously a true freshman starter.
This is so Jalen Carter, in my opinion,
yes,
is a preferred 4-3 player, or 4-down player, I should say, and even front. While I think that he can play in an odd man front, it's not advantageous to him.
Yes,
I don't think there's any limit to that from Bryan Bresee.
No,
he can play, like you said. I wouldn't play him as a 0, but he can play anywhere from 1 to 5. He could do that pretty convincingly. Think about how Pittsburgh Steelers still run a lot of multiple fronts where they're playing 3-man, they're playing 4-man. I think Bryan Bresee can do all that type of stuff. He's a Cam Hayward type of player. I'm not comparing him to Cam Hayward because I actually have a different comp that I like a lot better. But he can do that as a 3-4 defensive end who can also play 3 tech. He can also play 1. He can do all those types of things. He reminds me of, though, and I think I put this one on Twitter a little bit ago. So this one isn't here it comes. Ndamukong Suh. I see that player.
Was he also 6'5"?
Yes. I mean, Suh was big. He was 6'4.5", 6'5", long, and he was the thing that reminds me a lot of Suh from Bresee is he has just got grown man strength, man.
Yes.
You'll have a player try to reach block him, and he's fighting pressure with pressure, and he just puts his dudes on skates, man. And you're just that's not ordinary. He's a strong. I don't remember. Do you remember exactly where he's from, Joe? Because he plays like a farm boy, man.
I think he's from Maryland. I'm pretty sure.
I think you're right.
It's not even really.
Is it DeMatha Catholic? Is it DeMatha?
He's from Damascus.
Damascus. I'm sorry. Yeah. So Damascus. So yeah, he's a Maryland guy, and he plays like he's just grew up out in Iowa. Out in the cornfields. He was just kind of throwing hay over his arm and just running around. That's how he plays, man. He is a physically impressive dude. And then the movement skills for his size is rare, man. Like you said, there's times where he's lined up at 7 and he's running an outside track and you're like, oh, my guy's got a little juice to him. I called Jalen Carter twitchy. I would call Bresee explosive and long, right? He knows how to run tracks, and he is a tough dude to kind of counter with that length and that explosiveness that he has. I don't think he's going to change direction necessarily as well as a Jalen Carter, but I think if he splits a gap, man, he is out of there with the strength that he has and the explosiveness he has. So I think the important part to talk about him, Joe, is because these things, we're not directly saying 1 versus 1. We're not saying Jalen Carter versus Bryan Bresee anymore. We're not really doing that action. But I do think there's something merit here to saying right now Jalen Carter is the higher prospect, in my opinion, right? Bryan Bresee is a first-round player, though, all day long. The question is, if Bryan Bresee hits his ceiling and Jalen Carter kind of stays the same or maybe gets a little bit better, can we have a conversation of who's the best defensive tackle in this class? Do you think Bryan Bresee could challenge him? Because I do think he can. I'm not predicting it, but I think Bryan Bresee has some rare traits, man. He's a rare player from a talent perspective. Hasn't fully put it together because of some injuries, and because he missed a majority of the season last year, and
he's had multiple injuries.
Yeah, and Clemson does misuse him a little bit, right? It's not a fully transparent kind of projection. Mm-hmm. But I think the best of Bryan Bresee can absolutely rival the best of Jalen Carter, in my opinion.
I definitely agree with that, and we've also seen more of Bryan Bresee, and he was immediately impactful right away as a true freshman. Just some quick other like last notes on his play style and some of the things that like you're talking about that power like that, the ability to just continuously like powerful leg drive, to keep doing that when he's being blocked, like that stuff is really really freaking rare, and you almost do wonder how if maybe he can add a little bit of juice as an outside pass rusher if he can develop into that. The only thing that I'm going to push back like a little bit on, if I think that if he's going to deserve to be in the conversation with Jalen Carter, I am reluctant to do that, and I don't want to do that because of the lack of availability we've had from Bryan Bresee. Like we only had 3 and like a quarter of games to go off of last year. And last year's ACL injury wasn't the only injury that he sustained, if I remember correctly, off the top of my head. Like that really concerns me. And sometimes it kind of happens with these guys that are early developers and are step in right away. They play so much football early on that they're not always healthy. They're getting hit a lot. They're getting banged up a lot. He's on the field a lot more than Jalen Carter was last year. Those injury concerns is what is going to hold me back, and why I might actually, and I hate doing the injury concern bit, and Sean, my co-host in the FCS show, always gives me a ton of crap when I do this, but like I have to take it into consideration because it's not super consistent.
Okay, now we've heard about both players, Bryan Bresee and Mazi Smith. Both of these guys are 2 guys that are furniture movers. Both of these guys can get the job done. And if you're looking for a defensive tackle in the draft, Mazi Smith and Bryan Bresee are 2 of the guys that you can look at as well. I know everybody is pretty much looking at Jalen Carter and saying Jalen Carter definitely is the unanimous #1 guy at the defensive tackle position and possibly could be drafted #1 by the Chicago Bears, just depending on what the Bears really want to do. But at the same time, when you look at the whole situation, both of these guys right here, they offer something. If you're looking for 2 dogs on the line, 2 guys that got power and strength and athletic ability, both of these guys can give you that. The versatility that Bryan Bresee can give you on the defensive front, as well as the power and the strength and the athleticism that Mazi Smith has as well. I like both of these guys in the draft. I think that both of these guys, if you're looking to bring them in, especially a team like the Detroit Lions, where they need a very, very solid defensive tackle, a guy that can be a starter, a guy that can be a plug-and-play guy, or a guy that's just in a rotation. Now, I don't know what the Lions per se are going to do with Levi Onwuzurike. Don't have any idea, but we know that Levi was supposed to be that guy for them, and right now he's been going through some chronic back issues. So if you're a Detroit Lion fan and you've been looking for a defensive tackle, and I know most of the Detroit Lions fans would love to be able to move up to get a guy like Jalen Carter, because we pretty much think that Jalen Carter is that guy that would be able to transform and bring that power and that toughness to the Detroit Lions, bringing that meanness. That's one thing, being able to be on the front line and playing in the trenches, because that's where the game is won at, in the trenches. These guys don't get the recognition that the skilled players get. They don't get that type of recognition. These guys go in and they really, really work hard, man, on being able to get to the quarterback, being able to create pressure, being able to be consistent. That's what you want from these guys. And I think that Mazi Smith and Bryan Bresee could be 2 guys that you ultimately could look at and add these guys to your roster. I think that both of these guys could be day 1 starters. The skill set that they bring, I mean, just everything about these guys is something that you want if you are a team that's looking for a guy that can come in and help you right away. Now, injuries are always going to be a concern. We don't really want to draft injured players per se. You want to get guys that can come in right away and make noise. But because it's college football and because these guys have played a lot of college football, or I'll just say, put it like this, some of these guys have played a lot of football, period. These guys get banged up. Football is a gladiator sport, and it is a sport, man, where, it's very physical and you're going to get hurt. It's not how you're going to get hurt, it's when you're going to get hurt. Players get hurt. It's a very demanding and physical sport, and not many people can handle this type of sport. So definitely, man, I'm loving everything about these two prospects. And I think that Bresee and Mazi would be a great addition to any NFL team. Any team that's looking for a defensive tackle outside of Jalen Carter, these are two guys that you can pick up in the draft. And both of these guys are big guys. I believe Bryan Bresee is 6'5", 300 something pounds. And then Mazi Smith is 6'3", 337 pounds. So these are two big human beings, man. That's why I call these guys the furniture movers. These are two big furniture movers that you can add to your roster, and these guys will be able to get the job done and be able to help on your defensive line. Because I believe that the Detroit Lions need players that can move furniture. They need guys that can get it done, man. Guys that can get that push and create that camaraderie with guys like Aiden Hutchinson and now James Houston. You know, the Lions are building something great over there. And I think if the Lions want to go out and really, really do their homework and put these guys on a big board, because I would definitely do it. It's not a guarantee that the Lions will be able to get a Jalen Carter, because I think that Carter could be in the top 5. And I think that the Lions pick at 6 now, I believe the Lions are picking at with the Rams pick. So any NFL team that are looking for talented defensive tackles, Mazi Smith and Bryan Bresee are two guys that you can definitely say alongside of Jalen Carter that these guys are very good players, and they can definitely be disruptive, and they can cause havoc. That's what you want, man, out of your defensive linemen. You want guys to be able to create that pressure, be able to get to the quarterback, be able to stop the run, and just be able to be that plug guy that plugs the middle, being able to stop the run. And that's something that I know the Lions have struggled with, is being able to stop running backs and stopping the run, period. So if you got some good defensive tackles and you got two guys that can bring it, and hopefully when they get into the NFL, they're not injury prone. It does happen. Guys do get hurt. But you want to be able to have two guys that's going to be game changers on your front line. And I think that Bresee and Mazi Smith are two game changers alongside of Jalen Carter. I definitely got Jalen Carter as my number 1 defensive tackle. The guy really, really reminds me of Sue, no doubt. When the Lions had that toughness and that meanness with Sue, he provided that, man. He provided that on that line, man. Right in his rookie year, was balling out. Now, Aiden Hutchinson is a little bit different now. Aiden Hutchinson can play, he can go inside as well as outside, but he did something this year that's a little bit different from what Sue did in his rookie year. This dude had 3 interceptions, man. 3 interceptions, and I believe he's currently at 9.5 sacks. So Aiden Hutchinson was a great pickup for the Detroit Lions, and I think sky's is the limit with Aiden Hutchinson. Just like Sue said, you're going to have to build around Aiden Hutchinson. And I think that that's ultimately what the Lions are going to be looking to do in the 2023 draft, that they're going to be looking to build alongside Aiden Hutchinson and guys like James Houston. You know, maybe they bring back Romeo Okwara. Maybe they bring back Charles Harris as well. But at the same time, you want to be able to get some furniture movers up front. And definitely, man, Bryan Bresee and Mazi, I should say, Smith is 2 furniture movers and 2 guys that you can look at in this draft and say, yeah, I'm confident. I got these 2 guys on my big board. If I can't obtain the rights of a Jalen Carter, then what other guys? Because sometimes, we get caught up in just one player. You can never get caught up in one player if you are a team drafting. You have to have all these names on a big board, and you have to really break it down to who are your top 5 guys that you're after. What guys that you can get on your roster that's going to help you and bolster the team in 2023. And I think that Brad Holmes for the Lions is going to do an excellent job of being able to get the talent in here. And I definitely think that either one of these guys could be a pick by the Lions. I'm not saying that they're going to be Detroit Lions, because you never know what Brad Holmes wants to do. But I love everything these 2 guys bring to the table. All right, you guys, make sure you subscribe to Raw Detroit.